Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys swinging by the channel today and hanging with me. Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the Megabass Magdraft and how you can catch more fish on it than anybody you know. This thing, the Magdraft, is without a doubt the most popular swim bait and has been for the last almost 10 years anywhere in the country. It's an unbelievable fish catcher, comes in a bunch of different sizes. And there's a lot of nuances about this bait. You don't just throw this thing out there and reel it in. I'm not saying you can't catch them doing that, but there's a lot of little tips and tricks that I want to share with you guys today on this, as far as how to modify them, how to work them, where you fish them at, the type of equipment you throw them on. Definitely going to help you guys catch more fish, so we'll get into that in today's episode. And also, guys, I'll put my Megabass Magdraft link in my Tackle Warehouse, the link in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to order some. They got a bunch of different sizes. They got freestyles. They got the hook hanging ones. So if you guys would like to order some Magdrafts, if you use my link in this description, that's a really good way to support the channel, because anytime you buy a Magdraft, the channel gets a small percentage of the commission on the profit of the sale. It's not much, but it adds up after a while, so really appreciate that. And also, guys, one of the things that will help you out with this Magdraft is a lot of you guys out west may have heard people talking about buttering their swim baits. Take some fish scent, guys. This is the bait pop. This is what I use because it stays on the bait really good. Real fish scent, amino acids. And take some of this bait pop. It's got different flavors and colors. And just butter your swim bait with it, just like that. It stays on there. And when those fish track these swim baits and they get real close to them, a bass can smell better than a dog. So it really helps them commit to the bait and bite it when you got some fish in on there. So again, I'll put the bait pop link in my Tackle Warehouse link in this description of the video if you guys would like to order a bottle or a tube of it there. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, this thing, I had a chance to fish this thing before anyone else did. I had the prototypes, since I'm with Megabass, I had the prototypes before anyone else. So I've been catching fish on the Magdraft for, it's been around 10 years now. And if you're not familiar with it, let me sort of run you over the scenario with it. It comes in a bunch of different sizes. It comes in a 5-inch, a 6-inch, an 8-inch, and a 10-inch. For all practical purposes, the 5, 6, and 8 inches are the one I use the most. I don't use the 10-inch most. In fact, I've only caught a couple fish on the 10-inch model. It is so honking big that unless you're fishing like in California or Florida or Texas, something like that, it's hard to get a bite because it's a 6 ounce, it weighs 6 ounces. So we're going to be talking about the 5, the 6, and the 8. But if you're not familiar with it, guys, the Megabass Magdraft, when you work it through the water, one of the things that makes it really unique is the head on it turns like that when you're reeling it, along with this big flapping tail. So the profile and the action of this bait with the big wagging tail, it looks just like a live minnow in the water. And then the cool thing about it is you have a magnet inside of here that will hold the hook in place, or you can put it in the slot right there, which makes the hook very inobvious. And this is one of the things that makes this bait really unique, is you look at that and you can't really see the hook. And those fish come up and grab it and they just get hooked by those back two hooks. When I first started fishing a Magdraft, I looked at this thing and says, man, that's gonna be a fish losing mother, because the hooks are right up against the belly. Guys, you don't hardly ever lose them. If they bite this thing, if they bite the tail like anything else, which they do occasionally, you're not gonna get them. But for the most part, when they bite this thing, you always get them. And another thing, guys, I've experimented with a lot of different hooks as far as replacement hooks. The stock hook that comes with this is perfect. You don't even have to change the hook out if the hook gets bent or dulled or something like that, I'll replace it with a number 1 Gamakatsu G Finesse treble. I'll link that in the Tackle Warehouse description too. But that's sort of the characteristics of the Magdraft. And to give you a size comparison, here's the new little 5-inch model, which is rapidly becoming my favorite. And here's the 8-inch model next to it to sort of give you guys a size comparison. Okay, now one of the reasons I wanted to do this video, at the time of filming this, we're in the first week of May, and I think that the 2 best months to fish a Magdraft are April and May, and specifically May. When those fish pretty much get done spawning, they want a big meal. They've exhausted a lot of energy spawning, they're hungry, the males are hungry, the females are hungry, and a Magdraft is a big bait. It offers a big bite for the fish, and they go for it. And that's one of the reasons I really like fishing it in May, is because the fish are positioned to catch them on a Magdraft. A Magdraft for me is a shallow water bait, or just slightly deeper than shallow water. In other words, I normally fish a Magdraft in 10 foot of water or less, and I usually fish it fairly high in the water column. So there's a lot of fish in May that are still in those spawning areas where you can catch them. They're out, maybe pulled out to some points. We'll talk about that later. But one of the reasons it works is just, there's a lot of fish in that zone that the Magdraft works in. You can fish it as deep as you want because it slowly sinks, so you can get it down as deep as you want to let it go down. Okay, so before we get into the equipment and everything, I'll talk a little bit about the ideal conditions for a Magdraft. And then, after we get done, I'm going to talk about the areas you throw it in specifically. One of the things that you'll find out about a Magdraft is it's pretty diverse in the conditions that it works in. I have caught bass on a Magdraft in 1.5 foot of water visibility, and I've caught them in 10 foot of water visibility. It works in a wide range of water depth, water clarities. It also works in a wide range of light intensity or sunlight or cloud conditions. I've caught them on bluebird skies, and I've caught them on rain, everything in between. So that's sort of unique for a lure category to appeal the fish under that broad of a range. One thing that will help you on a Magdraft big time is wind. I prefer about a 5 to 15 mile an hour wind for a Magdraft. There's something about the wind that really seems to activate them on that. Not that you have to have it, because if you're throwing a Magdraft around a target, like say for example you're tossing it next to a boat dock or down the edge of a tree or something, it can be slick calm and they'll dart out and get it. But if you're fishing it more over just open areas with not throwing them around targets, like going down a rocky bank, it really helps if you got wind. It really activates them. But scenario wise, if you could give me the perfect scenario, here's what it would be for a Magdraft. Give me water visibility of about 3 to 5 feet, number one. I like the little bit clear water for it. Give me some type of a cloudy day and give me some wind. So I like, 3.5, 4 foot of water visibility, water temperatures in the 70s, about a 10, 15 mile an hour wind, and overcast skies. Excuse me, in conditions like that, those are premium conditions for a Magdraft. Now you can catch them on either side of that. I'm not saying that's where it exactly has to be, but that's the perfect scenario with it. Okay, another thing with it, and I'm going to show you a couple modifications here, but the equipment is really critical with a Magdraft too. First of all, you want to have some type of a medium heavy bait cast reel. A lot of times I'll use that Megabass Perfect Pitch, which is a 7 foot 2 inch. I've got it on 15 to 17 pound test Seaguar VizX line for the 5 and the 6 inch model. And for the 8 inch model, I throw it on 25 pound test Seaguar VizX line. And I've got this Cast King ALTI bait cast reel, 7-to-1 retrieve with it. I really like the 7-to-1 retrieve. It works really good with that. Another thing with that, before we get into how to work it, talk a little bit about the modifications here. Now, a lot of you guys aren't going to want to do this because it looks like you're just destroying your Magdraft, but I can assure you it will help you more. One of the things that I do with mine, guys, is you can see the slits right there I made. I took a pair of scissors and I simply cut some slits on the side of the Magdraft. And what that does is it opens it up a little bit more, and I think that the bait collapses a little bit more in the fish's mouth, and it gives you a little bit better hookups. Another thing that I do with it is the belly right there, you can see this has been cut. I've taken my scissors and I've cut off some of that belly meat right where the hook goes in right here, because what this does, it gives me a little bit more exposure on the hook, and it seems like I get better hookups with it. Now, those are two modifications that I use with it. I'm not saying you have to do that because I've caught tons of fish on a Magdraft just throwing it right out of the box, but one of the things for me, guys, I like to modify my baits a little bit. I mean, whether or not, how much it helps is hard to know, but it gives me a lot of confidence in those modifications. So that's one of the things I like to do with it. Okay, now, one more thing before we get into where you want to throw it is how to work a Magdraft. Working a Magdraft is, there is some skill set to it a little bit. It's like you can catch some bass on it just throwing it out there and reel it in, but there's a couple little things you can do that will really help you out. Make your cast with the Magdraft out there, and based upon how deep that you want to fish it, That's going to determine how long you want to let it sink, and it's going to determine your rod angle. Let's say, for example, that I'm fishing a secondary point with it and the water's clear, and I think those fish maybe could be down as deep as 8 or 10 feet. I'll get at my boat out in like 20 foot of water, 25 foot of water. I'll make the long cast out there with it, and I'll count it down like 1, 2, 3 until I get it to 10. And then once I get it to 10, you know, I've got my rod tip low in the water because I want that bait to get deeper, and I point the rod tip straight at the lure. You don't want to put the rod tip off to the side. You want it straight at the lure when you're reeling that Magdraft like that. And when I'm pointing it at it, I'm reeling it like that. I usually reel it like 3 or 4 cranks, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom, give it a fast half turn. So it looks like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So what this does, now this is critical as far as getting them to commit to the bait. You got the Magdraft that's going through the water like this, just normal, and then you give it that half turn and it goes darts like that. And bass are notorious for following a big swim bait or a glide bait. It gets their attention and they'll swim up to it and they're like, that thing's really big, I don't know if I want to commit to it. And then they follow it and it's uniform moving through the water. And then you go like that, and their instincts kick in, and they have to make a split-second decision. Okay, I'm gonna lose this opportunity, or I'm gonna get this fish in front of me. So a lot of times by going like that with that half turn, that gets them to bite it. That's really been effective to me with that. Now, if I'm fishing shallower, say for example, I'm going down a real shallow flat bank, and there's, you know, I'm just, you know, fishing rocky type banks. Maybe my boat's in 5 or 6 foot of water, making a 45-degree angle cast to the bank. In a situation like that, I'm going to raise my rod tip. I'm going to have it like at the 10 o'clock position. Same thing, I'm going to have it pointed straight at it, and I'm still going to use the half turn. But by raising my rod tip angle, that's going to allow me to fish that bait shallower and slower without it digging down a little bit deeper. So that's some things that's really worked for me with it well. Okay, now given that, let's talk about the important thing, and like the important thing in any type of fishing is like, where do you want to throw the thing at? You got, you know, I've told you guys how to set it up, you know, how to fish it and all this type of stuff. One thing before we get into the colors. The colors, guys, they have a ton of different colors. You can see some of my Magdrafts hanging on the wall there. Colors are like anything else. If I'm fishing a little bit off-colored water or dark conditions, I'll go with, you know, more of the pearl colors, and I'll go to the more translucent colors as the water gets cleaner. So that's pretty much a given there. But where you want to throw this thing at, there's a couple different scenarios that, you know, specifically this time of year that they work in. You have to think about spawn, post-spawn, and there's going to be 2 groups of fish in May. The spawning fish is you want to go in there and throw that Magdraft in the exact same places where you think those fish are spawning, like the back half of coves, flatter coves, places that have hard bottom. The cover's not that really important because you can, like I said, you can catch them on bare banks or around cover both. But get in those areas where you think that those fish have been spawning and just cover water in those areas. I usually run like halfway back into a cove or something and then fish my way back to the cove and back out the other side. That's going to catch a lot of those fish that are late spawners or garden fry or just hanging around shallow water. They're not ready to move out yet. That's one way. The second way is you want to go to the nearest deep water access close to those spawning areas, which is normally one of 2 things. It's normally a secondary point that's leading out, or maybe sometimes even a main lake point. Points are awesome. You can't beat points. Or a steep, bluffy type bank, a channel bank or a bluff bank. So in other words, let's say that you're back in a spawning cove, and if you come out of that spawning cove out to the main creek arm or the main lake arm, go to your nearest point or go to your nearest steep bank. If you're on that point, just get out there, depending upon your water clarity, and anywhere between, you know, 10 to 30 foot of water, depending on how clear it is, and just saturate the whole point. You know, throw one cast into 3 foot of water, throw the next cast into 20 foot of water, work the entire point around, because a lot of times, especially if that water's cleaner, those fish could be all over that point. They could be on the bottom, they could be suspended. There could be some in 5 foot of water, there could be some in 20 foot of water. So just saturate the whole point. And then on the steeper banks, and it can be riprap bank, it can be bluff bank, it can be channel banks, get your boat parallel to that bank and just make long parallel casts in anywhere between, say, 3 to 10 foot of water down those steeper type banks. And those are the two best ways to catch them in the month of May. But anyway, guys, it is an incredible fish catcher. And it's one of those baits out there that there was a learning curve for me. It took me a couple of years before I really figured out how to catch them good on a Magdraft. But now it's one of my mainstays. It's a main arsenal in my fishing, and catches lots of fish. It catches good ones too. So anyway, I hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.